let's transition. There was a trade that kind of happened, didn't happen, maybe happened.
Oh.
We don't really know what happened with the 4-team trade in the NBA. The Detroit Pistons being involved with the Golden State Warriors, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Portland Trailblazers. A whole bunch of movement, a whole lot of moving parts, and James Wiseman's a Piston. I think that's all that matters, right?
Yep.
Saddiq Bey went to Golden State, flipped from Golden State to Atlanta for 5 second-round picks, and then Kevin Knox was then traded from Golden State as well to Portland for Gary Payton Jr. Whew. Yeah, I feel like Rain Man or Zach Galifianakis when he's doing the math numbers there.
You did good, man. You did good.
Thanks. Except for the Alex Burks, but that's okay. At least I didn't call him Kevin Garnett this time.
Okay. Bro, yeah, see? That's progress. That's good.
That's
good.
progress. Is this a good trade for the Pistons? We kind of touched on it a little bit last week. It kind of fell apart, and then it came back together. So James Wiseman's going to be a Piston, and I think it's a good move. I know you don't, and you're probably going to again attack me for my position and all of that. But here's what I'm looking at. You have a 21-year-old kid who is highly touted out of college. Did not fit in Golden State, as I mentioned last week, but I'm going to keep pounding that point because his rookie year, he averaged 21 minutes a game. Then he got hurt last year, so he did not play. He was out with the knee, okay? I get it. People get hurt, right? This year he comes back. He's played in 21 games. He's only averaging 12 minutes a game. They're not using him the way that he should be used. And now he's got an opportunity to be used and get some real minutes.
Right.
So maybe it's a change of scenery type situation for a young kid who, according to the efficiency rating, is actually above average in the efficiency rating. More than Saddiq Bey was. Saddiq Bey was below league average in efficiency rating.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
You have length, defensive rebounding. Oh, and by the way, as you pointed out to me earlier, Jalen Duren's injured.
Yeah, breaks my heart. Truly breaks my heart.
So maybe Troy Weaver has a crystal ball, and he saw what was happening and what was going to happen with Jalen Duren and said, I need to get Wiseman. Because then next year I can take Wiseman and Duren and Stewart and Ivy and Cunningham. And that's a formidable 5, depending on where you fall in the lottery, because then you've also got Victor as well that could be there and replace Stewart. Just a thought. Because you could have Wiseman and Duren on the floor at the same time. The length of that lineup would be insane.
It is. And first of all, let's just say I'm happy that that's finally announced that the trade is happening. Like,
okay.
The whole dilemma with Gary Payton Jr., the second, failing his physical, and Golden State maybe filing a grievance with Portland and all that. I'm happy that's finally all resolved. Now, to get to the trade and how it affects the Pistons, I think there is value. I think there is upside with James Wiseman. I'm not going to deny that, especially considering, like we just said, Duren's hurt. They need length. Like, playing beef stew at their 5 cripples this team. Yeah. You cannot have a bunch of guys 6'8" and under. Like, that just doesn't work in today's NBA.
This is not the go-to-work Pistons.
Now, the problem with that is, though, I think even if you play Duren and Wiseman together, you're still missing shooting. You're still missing experience. You're still missing, like, a solidified role for him because he can't shoot. He may roll and be a lob threat, but if he's, banging and clogging up space for Duren, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing because neither of them, like Duren has a good shooting motion, but doesn't shoot perimeter jump shots that often. So there could be an issue of them clogging the paint. And my biggest problem with this is the Detroit Pistons have a habit of going for these cast-off players that didn't fit where they originally were, and now we're giving them the rebirth. Kevin Knox in New York, Marvin Bagley in Sacramento. We're doing the same thing now with Wiseman here in Detroit. We did the same thing. We tried to get Bol where he couldn't get no minutes in Denver. Now he's up there making great things happen with Orlando. We almost got him, couldn't make that happen because of a similar situation. Rodney McGruder failing his, or no, Bol failed his physical. But the Pistons are in a position where, yes, it's a rebuild, but they need to start bringing in and keeping guys that are established, Bojan type guys like Alec Burks to pair around Cade Cunningham. Saddiq Bey, I think, was a good friend of Cade. So it worries me on how that touches him as a player and as his teammate. But if Wiseman shows that he's him and that he fits with this team, I'll be the first one to admit it. I'll give him his credit. I'll give him all the flowers he deserves. But I am very apprehensive, and I'm not yet sold that this is a good move for the Pistons. I'm not sure yet, honestly.
There's got to be something that's said about the whole cast-off thing, right? Because there's a lot of people that, like, that's the complaint. Oh, we keep taking everybody's cast-offs. We keep taking everybody's cast-offs. Well, at a certain point, like, number one, you're not committed to too many years and too much money, first of all. Because you don't have to re-sign them.
No.
What if that change, especially in a rebuild where you literally have nothing to lose except for basketball games? You're not winning basketball games this year.
Right.
Why would you not acquire that? See what you have, and then move from there.
Because here's the problem.
Hold on, I wasn't finished.
Okay.
Because that's essentially what the Detroit Tigers are doing, right? To not shift sports completely, but the Tigers this offseason had a quiet offseason by a lot of fans' standards. But if you look at what their GM said he was going to do, he was going to acquire young talent and develop young talent. Mm-hmm. Which is exactly what he did, which made it look like he was acquiring a bunch of teams' cast-offs.
Right.
But now they have great organizational depth. Now they have the ability to develop those players. So now we're talking about the Pistons that have now two very young, lengthy centers that could develop into being a pretty formidable, like, twin tower situation if necessary. If they develop into that. If not, you've got Dern as your number one guy and Wiseman off the bench, and he could be productive off the bench maybe. I just don't see the negative in getting rid of an inefficient player. Yeah, I get the connection to Cade, and I get all that. And acquiring a young talent that was out, he was a puzzle piece without a puzzle.
Yeah.
In Golden State.
Mm-hmm. I feel like Wiseman and Saddiq, they were both in situations where they weren't going to flourish at the top of their ability. So I think Saddiq going to Atlanta is fine. I'm not going to miss him. I think he played himself out of the rotation. But my problem is this. Dwayne Casey and Troy Weaver have come out and say that they don't look at Wiseman as like some stopgap player. They think that he's somebody that can be built around long term. If there's a question of the fit, because again, you're going to need somebody to shoot at that stretch four position. They need that. And if they're clogging space, that's going to be a problem as well. That could be troublesome. And I'm just curious to wonder, how patient are they going to be for another project type player like him, for a player that you didn't draft? Like, there's a little bit to say with that. Like, you see guys like they extended a lease for guys like Killian. They want to make beef stew work. Like, you see GMs and front offices stay tied to the players that they draft and bring in. He's not that. He's a good player that has upside, but I worry about the length of his development timeline and how that's gonna coincide with the winning that's needed for this team. Like that, I'm not sure how that lines up yet. I need to see it before I actually believe in it real quick.
So if I'm understanding correctly, according to Spot Rack, he has 2 years left on his deal.
Yeah.
He's got next year, and then he'd be a restricted free agent in 2024. So he's really got this season and the rest of next season to kind of prove something,
so
right?
A year and a half, yeah.
Yeah, so like a year and a half. I think that's adequate time to see what you have and to make a determination. I don't think you have to extend him in order. Like, you will know within a year and a half whether he really is somebody you're going to build around or not.
Yeah, and I feel like we're not. I don't know if we're going to totally get those answers yet. With Cade not being there, with Jalen Duren, we don't know how long he's going to be off the floor.
This season's a wash, but one season's enough to tell you. I I think that you got plenty of time. You're not extending him unless he balls out.
But if he does it, then you just kick him to the curb, and you don't want to see that being another
What if you
player.
lost?
Like, what do you mean? What if they lost?
No, what if you lost? If you end up, didn't work out, we don't re-sign him after next season. What's been lost?
You allegedly, well, not allegedly, but you arguably moved out of the 3 players in the 2020 class, Killian, Sadiq, and Beef Stew. Sadiq had the highest upside of all those guys. So you moved him for a guy that you only kept for a year and a half that doesn't mesh with your lineup. You're in a position where you need to start winning as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And I don't like this constant repetition of getting these project dudes that may or may not pop off. Like, I'm
yeah, and eventually the rebuild has to end. So I'm with you there.
Yes.
I'm with you there. Like, you can't just continuously reclaim projects and expect to ever rebuild something. You have to actually move forward.